your brakes, okay? But Tesla is giving you an augmented reality. And we just saw the third accident in just a couple of months involving autopilot or reports of autopilot. Now, Tesla is claiming that autopilot was not involved in some of these crashes, but they're being very vague about it. They're always going to understand. They're always going to blame the human operator as being an error. It's never going to be their software. It's never going to be their car. It's always going to be you. You're going to be the one who is to blame. Part of it is a design problem. This latest crash that happened, and this was over the weekend, and this was in Montana. A driver, let's call it a driver, okay, a Jigglypuff who was along for the ride, and his other passenger were driving in Montana. They were going in an area that was about 55 to 60 miles an hour, and then there was no center line. Now, at that point, Tesla's so-called autopilot cuts off, and it hands over control to you. But how does it hand over control to you? Does it just quit? Are you, when you're sitting there playing Pokemon Go or watching a Harry Potter movie or whatever you're doing at the time, tweeting, are you going to wake up quickly enough to take back control because it just stops driving, just goes to sleep? Okay, so what happened in this particular one says the vehicle appears to be totaled with the front passenger side being completely torn off, including the wheel, but fortunately both occupants are reportedly okay. So what they're saying is Tesla does not recommend to use the auto steer feature of autopilot on a road without a center divider. And since the release of the 7.1 software update, it limits the speed of the system to the speed limit of the road plus an additional 5 miles an hour. So it knows the speed limit. It's going to be following you with that. It's going to be issuing you fines. That's what's going to happen as our government tracks everywhere we go, just like we're the little Pokemon Go people. Okay, this is, Tesla autopilot for dummy. I talked to Eric Peters yesterday. He's an automotive writer, an independent automotive writer, very perceptive about what is going on. He talks about it from a libertarian perspective. One of the things he talked about with autopilot is how this is not really autopilot. This is really, in his words, a Jetson vision of the future that's being sold to us. It's truly false. Remember back in the 1950s, I just was looking at a car magazine yesterday when it had all these pictures of 1950s automobiles with their fins, and they had the whole fleet of these cars parked next to a 1950s jet, just in case you missed the analogy, okay? And that's what they're trying to sell us by calling this autopilot. But understand that true autopilot, when that happens, your flight plan is pre-programmed. They make sure that there are no other planes anywhere close to you. You can't do that in a real world. And so what's going to happen is they're not going to space out your car miles and miles away from every other car and remove every possible object from you. No, what they're going to do is they're going to make sure that there are no humans that can get in your way. Of course, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be other things there's not going to be humans driving cars, but it doesn't mean that there's not going to be other things that are going to get in the way and are going to, there you go, there's the 1950s. Everybody wanted their cars to look like a rocket ship. And now they want to imagine that their cars are really planes again now. That's where we're going. Understand, as he pointed out, that what you're going to do is you're going to give up your right to drive forever. You're going to give up your freedom to drive forever. And understand that it is a partnership between the people in Silicon Valley who are selling you this illusion and the government that wants to control and track everything you do, and Uber that wants to own all the cars. You're not going to own anything. It's going to be too expensive for you to buy these cars that are hyped up with all this technology. It simply isn't going to happen. And I think the most interesting thing that's coming out of all this is the crony capitalism. We talked about that in our report as well, the fact that there's been a lot of articles by various sources. The LA Times has talked about how Elon Musk has gotten about $5 billion in government subsidies for his various ventures that he's got going on. Of course, SpaceX is one of those, and he's gotten essentially a monopoly on launching space satellites, and that was very easy to come by. He made some campaign contributions to John McCain and others to grease the right palms, and he got where he wanted to go. They've had nothing but encouragement and support from the Department of Transportation, the Federal Department of Transportation, as well as the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. I'll call them NHTSA for short. They have essentially greased the skids for these people. Yet now we see the SEC is investigating Tesla. And it's interesting, I think, because when you look at what happens, and I guess Elon Musk is scratching his head and calling a meeting and saying, wait a minute, who is supposed to pay off these guys? Because what we're seeing happening with the Department of Transportation, with NHTSA, is essentially regulatory capture, folks. It's the same thing Big Pharma, Big Agri do to the FDA. They make sure that their regulators really aren't going to regulate them. They look at it more as a partnership, okay? So that's what we're seeing out of the transportation bureaucracies. But the Security and Exchange Commission is taking a look at this and says, well, wait a minute. You had this accident on May 7th, and it was 54 days before this was made public. And in the meantime, there was a lot of stock activity that was going on, okay? So there was this accident, May 7th, where the former Navy SEAL was lulled to sleep and to his death by the promise of a safe autopilot car. That was not reported to NHTSA for 9 days. And then NHTSA and Tesla both sat on this information for another 43 days. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs upgraded their stock to a buy. Tesla sold about $1.5 billion worth of stock. They used that to buy, to make an offer of $3 billion to acquire a rooftop solar installer, and so forth and so on. And then finally, on June 30th, 54 days after the accident, NHTSA goes public with the information that Tesla had a crash. Okay, that's the way they have rolled out this timeline. And so now the SEC is saying, well, we want to take a look at this and see if you should have disclosed this to investors when you were making all this money off of the stock market. But what we're going to see is we're going to see the same thing happen with Tesla that we saw happen with Hillary Clinton. It's going to be one standard for everybody else and a different standard for the people who are well connected. That's what we constantly see. You know, you need to understand that the way the rules of the road are set up, it's they take everybody off the road when they come to town with the president, don't they? They shut down the airports, they shut down the highways, and they grease the skids for these people, and that's what we're seeing with these crony capitalists. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and we're going to talk here about killer robots, the other technology that is coming after us. It's not just the killer self-crashing cars that we've had 3 crashes from Tesla in the last 2 months, but also the killer robots that have now we've seen used for the first time here in America in the shooting in Dallas. There's some ethical issues behind that I want to talk about. But before we do, just want to remind you again that we've extended until tonight our specials on Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine, 20% off, as well as InfoWars Select Storable Food, 20 to 40% off. Those specials that were part of our July 4th special are going to be ending tonight. Again, it's your way to fuel your health and to fuel the InfoWar as we head to these Democrat and Republican conventions. We really appreciate your support. We try to help you as well to show our appreciation by having these sales and extending them, but they're going to end tonight. That's 20% off Survival Shield X2 and 20 to 40% off InfoWars Select Storable Food. Also, we have a new product, the new Go Smile Sonic Pro Teeth Whitening Toothbrush. This is something that Alex's dad is a dentist. He's been practicing for 30 years. He said it's the best teeth whitening system that he has seen. He uses it in his practice. It is essentially 3 aspects. It's a Go Smile Sonic toothbrush that vibrates at an average of 27,000 times per minute to give you a super deep clean. It also has a whitening gel and a blue wavelength light technology. It's part of that brush there that kills bacteria in your mouth, that causes bad breath, and activates the whitening gel. So it's a 3-in-1 system. It's something I think looks very promising. I'm going to try it myself. And I've got a vibrating toothbrush, but I don't have anything like that gel that whitens teeth and kills bacteria. So that's something I'm going to pick up right now for a limited time as a new product. We've got 25% off your second toothbrush system. Your second Go Smile Sonic Pro system is part of our special introductory offer at InfoWarsStore.com. Take a look at the 3-in-1 system that we have there. Look at the discount that we have. It is a great system. Again, it's something that Alex's dad, who's been a dentist for 30 years, has put together, something that I think you'll find very useful. You know, as we're looking at killer robots, and we saw the first one used this last week as part of the shooting, we had a lot of people come out and say, well, okay, we're not going to put any more lives in danger. We got a guy who is crazy. He's shooting people without reason. He's targeting people because they're white, because they're police. So we're not going to expose anybody else to getting shot. Okay, fine. We understand that. But also understand that earlier in the day, we had a guy who was simply exercising his right under Texas law to do open carry, and he was wrongly accused of being one of the shooters. And that's another part of this, okay? If you want to know what's going on, one of the things that concerns me about this is the fact that we were told as it was happening that they were getting triangulated, that they had shots coming in from multiple directions, that they believed there were multiple shooters. And now we're told, as always, that it's a lone shooter. You know, when I look at these situations, when I look at these mass murders, I want to know that we got everybody, don't you? Don't you want to know that we got the right person, that we got everybody? Don't you want to know that we followed due process? Instead of having a kind of judge dread process where we allow our police to be judge, juries, and executioners, where they say, I am the law, and they just execute people on the street. Understand what happened with Mark Hughes, okay? He was identified by the police. His picture went out on social media. He said, I just got out of an interrogation room when he talked to CBS just hours after the shooting. He says, I was there for 30 minutes with the police officers lying, saying that they had video of me shooting. He said, that's a lie. They said they have a witness saying I shot a gun. That's a lie. I mean, at the end of the day, the system is trying to get me. And when we look at this, we have to question whether or not we want to allow this precedent to continue. We'll talk more about this on the other side of the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. We're going to be joined in the next segment by both Alex Jones and then Anthony Gucciardi is going to join us in the studio, talk about the collapse of society. One evidence of the collapse of society, I think, is the fact that everybody seems to be just fine with the fact that the police used a robot to kill the shooter. Because what we have here, let's understand this, folks. This truly is the first use of a drone to kill an American on American soil without any due process. Now, we can argue that it was done to save lives, okay? But you have to understand that there is nothing more dangerous than a government that is not held to a legal standard. In the long run, you're going to lose a lot more lives that way. This is a story that was up from the Ron Paul Institute on InfoWars yesterday, and Dallas drone wars just came home. And that was essentially the point they made. They said, yeah, it was done with a drone, even though it was wheels instead of wings on this particular drone. And as I was talking about before we went to the break, the shooter who was the open carry person who was falsely identified as a shooter, and that was a black Dallas protester, Mark Hughes, went out all over social media. The police said they held him for questioning for a half hour and said, we've got pictures of you shooting a gun. He said, they're lying about me. And eventually, they turned him loose. They were just calling the bluff. But you have to ask yourself, how far down the road are we going to go when the police are being attacked like this, or there's an urgent need, that they will, out of fear or expediency, just shoot someone instead of putting their picture out on social media and saying, this is the shooter? Will they not just kill a future Mark Hughes? That's the point that's made in the article. So during the questioning, they told Hughes they had a video of him shooting people. That was a lie. What if the police had sent a drone to take him out? What will happen in the future to future Mark Hugheses who are falsely accused by the police of being in a shooting? Will we come to accept murder without a trial? See, part of the problem with this is when we look at all these mass shootings, they're always used to further a political agenda. Wouldn't we like to know that we truly have gotten to the bottom of it, that we truly have gotten the people that were involved in it, that we have an accurate picture of what happened? But understand that this really isn't about race, fundamentally. This is about an arms race. This is about the military-industrial complex coming home to America. They want the militarized police because it's going to be a profit center for them. The war on terror is a profit center. That was the key profit center they had as they shut down the Cold War.